This is my 2014 Tesla Model S. It has 162,000 miles. Now, I've been told that you can do what's called a battery recalibration on it. Now, this is the P85, the Performance 85 kilowatt. Now, with 162,000 miles, the last time I charged it to full, to 100%, it said I had 250 something miles on it. But I went out and drove it all the way down to 1%. How many miles did I get? Well, according to my trip here, it says I only went 141 miles. So it projected that I would have 252 miles, but in reality, I only went 141 on a full 100% charge. That's not that great. Now, that was a lot of different kinds of driving. I drove around on the highway, I drove aggressively, I did a lot of short trips, had the air conditioner blasting. It is here in Las Vegas. So, looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, at 100%, I got 141 miles. That's not very good for a P85. So let's charge it up to full. The car is currently at 1%. 1%. Now, I've let the car sit overnight and let it stabilize. And now we're going to plug it in. It's going to charge all day long. I've got this, a 40 amp charger. All right, it's ramping up the charge. I only paid $100 for this charger. And we'll make sure that it's charging. Let's see, charging, yes, and it is. So this is going to take some time. I've got it set to go to 100%. So we're going to charge it to 100%. And then I'm going to drive it till it's empty again as far as I can and see how many miles I've gotten on it. And we'll see if this hurts, helps, or does nothing. By the way, when I left the car at 1%, I popped the frunk and left the window down. Why? Because if the battery were to go completely dead, you would want to be able to access the 12-volt battery that's under this part of the frunk, and you'd want to be able to reach in and open the door if for some reason the doors won't open. Just a little tip, if you're going to run your car battery all the way down, make sure you can get back in the car. Okay, the car has been charging, I think, something 7 or 8 hours. Let's check it out. It says it's to 100%. Its cooling system has been running full blast while it's been charging all day. It's been kind of a hot day here in Vegas. Let's have a look. All right, it's predicting 260 miles. Well, that's certainly more than when I charged it the other day. It was showing like 240, 250. It's a little bit more. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to go into my pedals and steering. I'm going to put it on chill acceleration. I'm going to maybe put it on high regenerative braking. And also set it on range mode. This will lower the air conditioning. And I'm going to gently drive it. I'm going to drive it as much as I can and see how many miles I can get out of this before I get down to, let's say, I don't know, 10%, something like that. So we're going to see if it makes a big change. But it's predicting 260 miles. That's pretty good. I like it. So looking at this says projected 211 mile range based on my driving habits. I really don't know how well these really work. I suppose if you were on the highway and you could get an instant range based on what your driving was. So all I can do is drive it around a bit for a few days and report back and let you know how it turns out. Well, checking the car, it's showing 260 miles of range. I'm going to cheat a little bit, and you'll see on the other video that I post. I'm just going to try to drive it gently, put it on the most energy-saving mode that I can, and try to take it easy and see if I can do better. Because last time it showed, 240, 250 miles of range, and in reality, I got like 140 miles, something like that. So I'm going to see if we can do a little better. let this thing cool down. It's been charging. It finally got to 100%. And I'm not going to charge up to 100% again. I've done that twice now, and I know that's bad for the battery. But we're doing some balancing and we're doing some testing. So hopefully that makes a difference. We'll see. Okay, so went out tonight. 89% we're at. And I've gone 16 miles. So I don't know if that's good or bad, really. You know, using, 11% and getting 16 miles. I mean, that would suggest 150, 160 miles times 10, basically, which is not the 260 it was predicting. You see, looking at the display of distance instead of percentage is showing 224 miles, but that wouldn't be the case now, would it? It'd be 100, almost 100 miles less, obviously. So I'm thinking that the realistic truth here is that even though this thing is telling me 200 plus miles, I don't think it's capable of that. I don't know how it calculates these percentages and things. When I look at the energy here, where did it go? Where it says energy. So, looking at, let's see, where it says consumption. I mean, this thing will say, I don't really know how to read these numbers and how that's supposed to work exactly. But we'll find out. But I just based on my previous experience with the car and what this has given me, that's what I think. I think that it's only going to give about 150 miles. All right, day 2 in the Tesla. I've been driving it around. I'm at 79% and I've gone 23 miles, which means it's not even getting a mile per percent when it's estimating 2.5 miles per percent. So if I were getting 2.5 miles per percent of use at 100%, that would be, it's calculated 250 miles, but that's not what I'm getting. I'm getting about a mile per percent. Now, that's probably because of the air conditioning, which is blasting right now, and the cooling. Even when this thing is parked, it's cooling, not the interior cabin sometimes, but the charging system is being constantly monitored. And also auto steer and other things. Now on the highway, you're probably going to get a lot better. I'm doing these little short 2-mile trips and things. But based on that, I think that this thing is only going to do around 100 to 150 miles per charge, where it's calculating 250. Because I got 140 last time, and I did a lot of highway driving. Because I just let this thing auto drive itself. And I'm sure autopilot uses a lot of power. That's an issue. So I don't even think I really need to continue this test and drive it all the way down to 0. Because one of the things that I've learned is that you kind of need to keep it plugged in all the time when you're not using it, just because it's consuming power while it's parked. At least it is here in Vegas, because it's it's cooling the battery packs and charging system even when you're not using it. It doesn't like the heat here, and we're not even into the hot part of the summer yet. So I think that the key takeaway is you get a 10, 12-year-old Tesla like this one, has 160,000 miles on it. You can expect to get maybe half of the projected range that it tells you it's going to give you. And I don't know if that's all due to battery degradation or just the way these things are. Because it says it'll go 250 miles. It's not going to go 250 miles. I don't think it's possible. And I did, like I said, I got it to 140 miles on the last 100% charge that I did. And I thought I could do better, but it's not looking like it. Now maybe if you charge it up to 100% and then you drove it right away in cool conditions, very moderately, maybe on the highway, doing a lot of regeneration, air conditioning low, yeah, you go 150, maybe more miles, especially if you're doing a lot of downhill runs with a lot of easy driving and a lot of brake regen. But this is just what I've found. Now, for an average run-around car on a daily basis, you're probably not going to go more than 100 miles a day. Some of you might have a little bit of a commute. But I'd say most people aren't going to. Most of my trips are a couple of miles here and there. So, I don't know. This isn't all that scientific of a breakdown. But basically, you know, the battery pack is fine. I'm not really worried about it failing. I'm not worried about the car failing. I've seen these cars with 200, 300, 400,000 miles, 500,000 miles. No kidding. But this is one of the things that like I said, I was never an anti-electric car guy. Let me see if I can't turn this fan down. It's pretty loud. I'm yelling over it. There we go. I'm not an anti-car guy. It's just that this car back in 2014 was over $100,000, somewhere in there. Around that same time period, I bought a Cadillac CTS-V wagon. I'm talking about a Cadillac with Recaro seats, supercharged. Amazing, amazing automobile. I think it was $69,000. And believe it or not, that car probably sells for that, if not more now. It's gone up in value. This car, I bought it for less than, I bought it for, what, 8% or 6% of its original selling price? Or 7%, whatever the math is. But highly, highly depreciated. And it's because even if you went and put a brand new battery pack and a brand new motor in this thing, it's still old technology. The screen, the computer, all this stuff, even though it's just as good as it would have been in 2014, it's not up to today's standards. I think it's an incredibly poor decision to buy a new Tesla. Even if you're buying one of the Ys or the 3s at $40,000 stripped down version, it's just not smart money. It's not. Buying one used, you know, if you can find one that's less than 10 years old, it's still under warranty, or you're leasing it. I don't know. I don't think it's smart money. The people that are buying them because they're staunch environmentalists, there's a lot of arguments to be made why that just doesn't make any actual sound sense. If you're buying it because you want the technology and you want one of the new ones that's self-driving, I gotta admit, that's pretty cool. And if you got the money to waste and you're pretty wealthy and you don't mind spending $100,000 and then spending $100 a month for that service or whatever, okay, cool. Hey, listen, I'm a guy that owns some cool cars. But I just don't think that it really serves the real purpose that it needs to. The people who can't afford to buy fuel and maintenance are also the people that can't afford these cars. It's very, it's the opposite effect. The people who can afford these cars can afford to buy gas. And they can afford to buy luxury cars. Doesn't make any sense, does it? But they are leading the way in technology, and maybe with all of the people that are the scapegoats that are buying these cars and testing them out over the last dozen or so years, is helping lead the pathway for these to get a lot cheaper. Because what needs to happen is you need to be able to buy one of these for the cost of a Nissan Altima. For people who don't have the budgets to spend on fuel. Like right now in Las Vegas, because we get all of our fuel from California, we're paying about $5 a gallon. But even at $5 a gallon, when you consider how much you spend on fuel, and then you compare that to the depreciation of what one of these cars cost versus what you can buy a cheap gas car for, just consider the fact that, like, I'm talking to a friend of mine that he doesn't make a lot of money, and he's just looking for some kind of beater just to drive around. And I said, look, you can pick up an old Chevy HHR for $3,000 that's got 150,000 miles on it and drive it to death. I know, because I have one. I bought like a 2011 HHR, has 160,000 miles on it. I bought it for $3,000, and I use it as a runaround vehicle at my little apartment that I keep in Dallas. And so whenever I'm there, I fly in and I drive that car around town and it performs great. And all the parts for it are dirt cheap. The average thing for that car is 20 bucks. Need a mirror or a glove compartment or a door handle, 20 bucks. Replace the entire exhaust system with the cat for $130 on Amazon. Parts for it are just cheap. And even the entire engine for that car, new in a crate, $1,600. So when you look at the cost of ownership of a Tesla, they go, well, there's no maintenance, there's no oil or whatever. That's true for a while. So if you drive this thing while it's under warranty and you get rid of it under warranty, when you look at the money that you lost in the depreciation when you finally sell the thing, it just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. And buying one of these with a gazillion miles on it after it's, this car's 12 years old with 160,000 miles, it's doing great right now. But if I have a large drive unit failure, charge unit failure, computer brain failure, anything, it's not like just something simple like a water pump, or even though it has one of those, or an alternator. Everything for this car is super expensive. You're talking $5,000-$10,000 repairs. So I'm just not sold on this thing. For me, as a person who has money to spend, I'm driving this thing around as a novelty. And that's a completely different barrel of monkeys. I'm a guy that has some really nice luxury cars and things. And if this car failed on me and I had to throw it away, and let's say I lost 10 grand, it's not going to hurt me like it would a poor working stiff who needs this car to get to work. And I'm sorry if that sounds kind of arrogant by me saying that. I'm just stating the facts here. So I don't know if I could recommend this car for somebody who really needs to get around and needs a beater. I don't know if it's that smart of a deal. Because if something goes wrong, boy, you're in trouble. You're in trouble big time. So it's going to take some time. Only time will tell. It's going to take some time driving this thing around and see if it fails. And they all seem to be such a crapshoot. One of the biggest things you need to do on the car that I'm told is to do a large drive unit coolant delete system. Because what they found is the coolant that runs through the motor in the back on the performance models will start leaking into the stator and fry out the motor. So what you do is you take it to a shop in California or Arizona. They take the entire motor out and delete the cooling system and just put a plug in it and then reprogram the car or whatever to, I don't know what they do. But anyway, that cost about $2,000 to $3,000 depending on the shop. That's not a huge amount of money, but if you for a $6,000 car, it is.